Hello, world culture enthusiasts. This is Asaf, and we're going to start with a short story before this episode because I really feel like I owe you an explanation as to this really long delay. So first of all, I really apologize for waiting such a long time after season 1 ended before airing this episode. This episode was meant to be the first of season 2, and I already started working on it. Just before we ended season 1, I had amazing guests coming to the studio. We recorded an episode about office culture, this episode that you're gonna watch. And then as I was planning to air the episode and at the same time schedule guests for the next one, well, we all know what happened. And I decided to wait it out, maybe see what happens, but quickly it became impossible to schedule new guests and use the studio, and everything became chaotic. I don't have to tell you how 2020 has been. Nonetheless, I remained very optimistic. I thought this will probably go away soon and we'll just be able to pick up where we left off. But as time flew by, I realized that we're gonna have to adapt to keep generating new episodes and new content. And I didn't want to wait too long, so we've waited enough. And without further ado, I will present you this episode, which was meant to be the first episode of season 2. I'm currently working on the proper season 2, which will be out, I hope, very, very soon. I really hope you forgive me for the long delay. I really hope you enjoy the episode and you help us grow in this 2020, the rest of 2020 and next year with your love and your likes and your following so that we can bridge some more cultural gaps and learn from each other. And so I'm sorry. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast.
歡迎收聽
ようこそポッドキャストへ
The Podcast mo خوش آمد
بروحים הבאים לפודקאסט.
欢迎来到我们的播客
Benvenuti sul podcast
Willkommen beim Podcast.
日本からこんにちは
Buongiorno
你
dall'Italia
好嚟自香港
Hello from Israel.
Shalom Azima
Hallo aus Deutschland.
Shalom Israel
Hello, world culture enthusiasts. This is season 2, the first episode of season 2 of Crossing Cultures, a show where guests from all over the world talk about the subtle, surprising, intriguing, and bizarre cultural differences in everyday life. My name is Asaf. Today, I have these wonderful guests with me from various countries, and we're going to talk about office culture, which everyone knows because we all have to get up and go to work at some point of our lives. Let's start with you guys. Introduce yourselves. Oi, where are you from?
Hello. So I'm from California. I was born in Israel, but I grew up since I was 4 in California, and I've spent most of my life there.
And have you ever worked for an American company?
I have worked for 2 American companies.
Okay, so you will tell us about the difference between those companies and Israeli companies.
Yeah.
You're now working for an Israeli company.
Correct.
All right. Next up.
I'm Katty. I'm from Germany.
Have you ever worked for a German company?
Yes. Yes.
So my name is Tati, and I'm from Venezuela. And yes, I worked in Venezuela as well. So yeah, here I am.
And hi, my name is Tali. I'm from Bolivia, and yeah, I worked in Bolivia as well for a Bolivian company.
All right, so you're a good fit for this show. All right, let's start with the most obvious, I guess, because I don't know if people are watching, but I dressed up for the show. I'm wearing a suit, like a button-down shirt and a tie, which is I had to dress up like this, especially because I never go to work like this, and I don't think people who worked in Israel have ever seen someone dressed in a button-down shirt and tie unless they're going to court and they're one of the people who are accused. That's probably the only reason people will wear a suit and tie in Israel. So let's talk about like the dress code. So dress code in the US, how would you show up to work?
So the U.S. is pretty big. So
let's limit it down to California,
right.
like
What
your
I can speak to
part.
is
Yeah.
my experience is working in Silicon Valley, which is a lot of startups, and so the dress code is pretty much what I'm wearing right now, which, if you can't see, is a t-shirt and a sweat, like a zip-up hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty standard for any kind of startup environment, whether it's in California.
And is it like, I think in Israel, if you go to work in a suit and tie, it's, I don't want to say it's frowned upon, but for example,
It's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird.
And in the US as well?
You can, I mean, it depends. If you're like in sales and marketing and you have to like meet a lot of customers or something, then maybe you'll dress up. Maybe if you wear like a polo or like a button-down shirt, maybe it's okay. But suits, I've only seen when people are like going to conferences and stuff. Never, ever in the office.
Because I told you guys when we were in the waiting room, I once wore like a button-down shirt. I work in a high-tech company, and I went to work with a button-down shirt and like buttoned up. And my colleagues took me aside and asked me if I was like being interviewed for other companies, if I'm like passively looking for work or actively looking for other work, because it was so weird. You have to have a very special character to dress up in Israel. It's absolutely not the dress code.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar in California, at least startup-wise, where I worked.
All right. How about Germany?
I would say it's different. We do dress up. And I mean, it also depends, of course, where you actually work. But in the company I worked for, which was quite a big company, it was very, very usual that you would dress up. Especially as guys, you would always wear a button-down shirt.
And a tie? Would a tie? Or it's like that's optional?
Not necessarily, but quite often you will see it as well. And also suits. You will also see a lot of suits. And
we're talking like also like junior level.
Yeah.
Not only executive.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's head over to the other side of the pond.
Okay, so in Venezuela, so moving to Latin America, basically is super formal. And I think also the culture for Venezuelan women specifically is very dressed up, like a lot of taking care of, like self-image kind of thing. So no matter if you're an intern or the president of a company, you're always going to be dressed up. And specifically where I worked, men would go to work in suits and tie, and no such thing as casual Friday. So
no, okay.
So very, very formal.
I mean, I have to ask as a follow-up question, how's the weather? Because I think that's also
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think you can wear a suit in Germany and be comfortable.
Yeah. So
also depends.
Yeah. So I am from Caracas, and Caracas has a very tropical weather. So pretty much like here, I wouldn't say as hot as it can be here during summer, but definitely all year round, 25 degrees. So people can sweat, I can say that.
Okay. that's
but they do dress up.
Yeah. All right. How about Bolivia?
Well, in Bolivia it's also very different than in Israel. People have to dress up. Like you usually see like the bottom-down shirts, not necessarily ties. And there might be casual Fridays, like that's okay, but not too casual, like no flip-flops.
Yeah.
And women don't necessarily have to wear high heels, but like you wouldn't be wearing sneakers or Converse or something like that, nor jeans. And usually makeup, like everyone looks like perfectly put together. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So I think it comes to, in Israel, that we put a lot of emphasis on informality. And I think it's true for workplaces. Again, maybe not if you're like in the government in specific places, but also in the military, there's a lot of informality. And I think that's part of like the dress culture in the office. And also it transitions into how you speak to your superiors. So for example, I call my boss by her first name, and I call my boss's boss by his first name. And, I feel very comfortable just like knocking on the door and talking to them, or, it's very, very informal. And I'm wondering, like, how is it in your part of the world? How would you address your boss, your superior?
So, yeah, I mean, I addressed my boss and my boss's boss and the president of the company and the CEO. I addressed them by their first name. But there definitely wasn't an informality about it. Like there was, we were still very like polite and we could like laugh and stuff together, but it wasn't ever like we're buddy buddy or something. It was very like, proper.
All
kind
right.
of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Germany, it's not like that. Like, you would do that within your team, like, that's fine. But your boss's boss and, like, the CEO, only if they would offer it to you. But I think the CEOs would never do it.
So how would you address someone who's like your
With a
superior?
last name.
With a last
Yeah.
name. Okay. Just
Also,
like a
we
last
have,
name.
like, in German, like, in the language itself, we have, like, in English, you're always saying you to everybody, and we have, like, differentiation and, like, saying you to a friend or you to someone you don't know. So it's a
it's
different
like
address.
like usted. Like you say, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
In
So
Spanish.
so I was gonna say that. So in Spanish we also have a formal you, which is usted. So in the working environment in Venezuela, to your superiors and the boss of the boss, you may call them by their first name, but you will use the formal you. You would not be, as you said, like, buddy, what's up, woohoo. So like you can say, you can laugh, you can even like make a group and have lunch together, but there's always going to be that sort of look up, I'm above you kind of thing. So yeah.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning of employment, which is how do people get hired? And let's start the journey, like how do people look for a job? How do people get into jobs? Or how would you recommend someone get the job of their dreams in your country? What is the process? I'll start, I think in Israel, a lot of the jobs, especially in like, let's say, white collar jobs, okay, or like the upper class white collar job, are from word of mouth. So you would know someone in the company, and like a friend would recommend you. They would go to HR. You would meet someone. You would meet them. I don't know, like in a conference or something that's professional, and then you would like start the process there, and not necessarily through like HR companies. That's more for like massive hiring, and also a lot through Facebook. So I think most of the people who are looking for work, with their first stop will be Facebook to see what companies are hiring, and they'll advertise it on Facebook. And then you would probably go through a series of interviews, if depending on the size of the company, probably with HR and then with like the CEO. And they would get shorter every time. So it usually it get like shorter if once you passed like a one stage, then usually the next stage would be like just to make sure that you're not a freak to pass through the sieve. And yeah, basically that's it. I don't know. I think that's all I have to say about that.
So, okay, there's two things about what you just said. So one, the thing with Facebook here is really strong. Like that's not something that anyone would do in the US to look for a job. I mean, maybe, but I haven't heard anyone who's looked, on Facebook for a job. It's LinkedIn. You go to LinkedIn, which I think is much more, prevalent there than it is here. But the other thing was word of mouth, like you said. That's very true. A lot of like the companies that I worked for were constantly asking us for referrals of like, hey, do you know anyone? And we would like reach out for friends. But as for the interview process, it often got longer as you went on. Like it would start with like a quick 15-minute phone call, with the
Maybe
the
I was
text
lucky.
screen, and then it would go to like a full hour phone call, and then it would go to an in-person interview for 2 hours, and then a final 4-hour in-person interview where you meet like 8 different people in the company.
And
Oh my god.
yeah.
I'm already tired.
Yeah, and that's like I had a 4-hour interview, but that was on the easy end. We had interviews that lasted a full day, where like even the lunch meeting was like you had lunch paid for by the company, but it was an interview.
all right.
Wow.
Wow, yeah. In Germany, also, I think Facebook, yes, you might find some, but it's not as huge. Definitely not. We have like different websites for it, where like companies will post their different things. So, and then it's not as long. It's definitely not as long interviews as you just described, for sure not. Also depends where you're gonna work. It's like some they have an assessment center, some they don't. I was really lucky. I was like meeting my like future boss, and he was like, "Oh, I think that's a good fit. here you go. But it could also definitely be different, that you have to go through a whole assessment center and you have to do tests and interviews and stuff like that. So it really depends on the company.
Do you get like homework assignments? Because that's very prevalent in Israel. That you get like you want to work for a company, then they make you work for free, and then if they like what you do, you'll advance. I don't know if that's
no.
No,
I've never heard about it. That Germany does it, and I think it's also. Especially in like the professional jobs, it's more also that the company is actually in the disadvantage of like getting the right people. So they really want you to work for them. So it's actually you are as a professional more in an advantage stage of saying like, I will work for you or I will go and find another company.
So how's the job hunting?
So in Venezuela is basically by connections. We also have a website that sort of like Monday.com, but I don't remember the name. But you go there for more like technical jobs. But if you usually go through referrals, through friends, and the interview process is, I would say, sort of like in between of what everyone has said. So you have a first interview with HR. It could last about 45 minutes, 1 hour. Then you meet with who your line manager would be, maybe for another hour, more or less, to see sort of like report, how do you feel like with the team and everything. And then if you, like the third and final stage is a psychological evaluation. So it's more or less what you were saying, like you go through the different, every time shorter and shorter to make sure you're not crazy. And this is an actual test to prove that you're not crazy. And that's the final stage, and then you get the job.
Do they like put up a Rorschach test, or is it just
so it's weird. So you have a questionnaire of like personality traits, and then you can, like, it depends on the company as well, but you can have sort of like images, when like they show flashcards to see like, what do you see here, and they take notes, and then you wait for the results to see if you're accepted.
And well, in Bolivia, it's actually very similar to Venezuela. Like, you start with an exchange of emails, then a phone call, then HR, and then the person who would be, like, you would be working for. And also a test in most places.
And how would you get to the job? Like, how would you get the job? Is there like a website, or just through connections?
Oh, so it's through connections. Like, depending on the position. In Facebook, I never heard someone find, like, the position of their dreams or something related to like what they work for, like what they studied in Facebook. And it's mostly by connections, like really good positions. It's gonna be usually because a friend recommended you, or someone that knows of you recommended you, and also LinkedIn. But Facebook, it's like very rare. You find jobs in Facebook, but not the type of jobs you would wanna
like what
work
kind?
for.
What is the kind of jobs you find on Facebook?
Well, mostly like I need a waiter or something like that. So it's not like an
not like
office.
professional.
Yeah, not a
Maybe
professional.
like
I
a
see.
per hour
Yeah,
type of
like
job.
yes, or freelancing maybe. But
Yeah. All right. So let's say you get the job. You're about to get the job, and now you need to negotiate your salary, right? So how do people negotiate? How is salary based? Do you, once you get it, do you ask for a raise? I think in Israel, you have to negotiate your salary. It's part of the process. Part of the process. Sometimes even maybe one of the first questions they would ask you is, what is your expected salary? And then let's say you say a number, and then you start negotiating. So it's kind of like a game of chicken, where you try and throw the ball as high as you can, and but not too high, because then you'll miss, and then I don't know.
Yeah, in my experience, it depends on the company. I've seen companies where the salary or salary range anyway was like on the job description, so you know exactly like, this is how much we're offering for this job. There's not much wiggle room, but but yeah, there is definitely some negotiation involved. Whether it's you as the potential employee who is gonna throw out the first number or the employer, kind of depends. I think it depends on the company. I've had both happen, but yeah, there is definitely negotiation involved, and it's not always a clear process in terms of like how to handle it.
That I have to say that it strikes me kind of peculiar, because in the US you never get you don't know the price of an item until you reach the cashier. And but you can know exactly the salary that's offered to you when you apply for a job. And in Israel, I've never seen a job offer that has the salary, unless it's like maybe for like bus drivers or something, like something very, very, very specific and like on an hourly term.
No, yeah, these are like full-time jobs that they'll have them, right. at least a range usually.
I like that.
Having
it's intimidating having to negotiate how much you're gonna get.
Yeah, like, but if there's a range, you'll obviously opt for the high end of the range, always.
Yeah,
exactly.
And even the range is, there's some wiggle room sometimes with some companies.
Exactly.
All right. Of course. How about Germany? How does that work?
Also, like you will definitely find things where you know before what kind of like range you will apply for. But also you will definitely also have to like you're asked to what is your expected salary, like what do you want to earn, like mostly for a whole year. That's what they ask you quite often, and then you can like at some points you can also definitely negotiate, but some companies especially due to like the employee protection laws we have, they have like a clear range of, okay, you have a bachelor, you get this, you have a master, you get this, you have a master, and you have like 5 years of working experience, you will get the range of this and this. So like it also depends on the company, but this is mostly like how it's handled, like what kind of degree you have, you will find yourself
so
in
the boundaries are
certain
set when
range already.
Okay,
Yes,
I understand.
That sounds very transparent, very German, maybe. So in Venezuela is nowhere near that. Basically, I think the working culture in Venezuela is very archaic in the sense that you are grateful for your employer to give you an offer, so you don't negotiate, and they don't ask you what's the salary you're expecting, and basically they just hand you the offer like, this is what we have for you, you take it or you leave it. And I mean, once you're in the job and once you have maybe a year and a half, you can sort of negotiate an increase in the salary.
After a year or a year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, like, you have to be pretty close to your line manager to have the guts to do that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's like a normal thing to do after a year in Germany. Like a year, 2 years, you will start to negotiate, or the companies anyways putting it higher and higher all the time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And in Bolivia, they also tell you like what what your salary would be, but you can negotiate depending. Like it depends on the position and of how much value you are. Like if you have a master's in this and that, like they would you could negotiate. But like if you qualify for the job, but you don't you don't have that much experience, maybe you shouldn't negotiate. But there was a while where there were like a lot of people with too much, like, how do you say, overcapacitated. So it's like empathy, like, and like you know that they will aim for higher, so it's like an encouragement.
All right. And how often do you get paid? Because in Israel you get paid once a month. You get usually it's a bank transfer, and then you get like either through your company mail or like a piece of paper that says how much the tax were deducted and everything like that. But you get paid once a month, and I think in the US you get paid like on a weekly basis.
Twice a month.
Twice a month.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and this is something you brought up about Germany, that when you kind of negotiate salary, it's talked about on a yearly range, not monthly like it is here, and that's the same in the U.S. It's based on a year. So, but yeah, you get paid twice a month, and usually just bank transfers. I think the last paycheck that you have at your place of work has to be a physical check. There's some kind of like custom. I think, but it's only the last paycheck. And they have to there's this whole thing where they hand it to you. It's like a
And people
like a
applaud,
ritual.
maybe?
No, but it's a thing. I don't know if it's just in California or just where I worked, but it's something that it's.
All right. Maybe you'd like the sentimentality of it and not cash it in. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're hoping for.
In Venezuela, you're also paid twice a month, and same as in the U.S. when you negotiate, when you talk about your salary, you're said this is how much you'll be paid on a monthly basis. It's not a year, and when you get paid, the gross amount negotiated is also net. In Venezuela, you pay your own taxes, so you're not deducted anything from the salary.
I see. All right.
Bolivia as well, you pay your own taxes. It's the net
Oh,
you're
okay.
receiving.
So gross and net is the same
Yeah.
that you receive. Yeah.
Okay. No, in Israel you only
It's-
negotiate the total,
Yeah.
and then after that you say, okay, hey, that's not what I.
It's quite corrupt.
That's
There-
always
There are places in Bolivia where you can actually purchase something and get a discount when you ask without taxes, and you wouldn't get the receipt.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
Exactly. The
yeah.
fact that you pay your own taxes gives a lot of space for gray
corruption.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say gray areas.
I'm gonna say that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I guess.
thing that you in Germany you discuss the yearly basis because you have something like the 13th salary and you have salary or money you get for Christmas and holidays and stuff like that. That's why you discuss it on a yearly basis.
So is that like a bonus, or is that included? The bonuses are included in your.
Yeah, kind of. There's also depends. If you work in sales, you probably have bonuses, on the sale, based on the sales as well. But usually, I worked as an event manager, so I had 12 and a half salaries, and I had bonuses if the company was doing well, and I got paid for holidays. And I got paid for Christmas, so I got
But that's not
bonuses
included
on
in
top.
what you've negotiated.
Yeah, that's
like a bonus.
kind of no. That's this is why you negotiate it on a yearly basis because you
okay.
say okay, I want to have 45,000 euros net, gross, and then this is what
They'll
they
find a
offer
way
you.
to fit it in.
Yes.
All right.
But now that she mentions that, you have that in Bolivia as well. It's not. It's for almost every job, you have you're gonna receive something for Christmas. You don't necessarily negotiate for it in in the salary, but you expect it, and they should give it to you. It's not written, but if you don't get it, you can complain about not getting your bonus.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
your
think-
right to get.
Some companies, I think, in Israel, they give monetary bonuses, but a lot of the times when it's a holiday, you'll get a bottle of wine or something like that. That'll be your bonus.
Here's
Yeah. So in Venezuela, you sort of get both. So
yeah, true as well.
so
There's all the spectrum, all the options.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're given your employment offer, you by law in December for Christmas holiday, you are given at least 2 additional monthly salaries, which is called aguinaldo. And aguinaldo literally translates to Christmas carol. So it's what you're given for the Christmas holiday. And it's mainly a tradition for parents to buy Christmas gifts and to go for holiday. But depending on the company, you can get between 2 to 4 additional months. So if you're given 4, basically you have 16 salaries.
That's
a year.
like giving people like a lot of money just before spending season is like economic lube. You know?
They have it in Bolivia, and companies have to pay it within, I think, a 3-month term. Like they don't have to pay it right away for Christmas, but yes, it's aguinaldo.
Exactly, and also you are given like a Christmas basket. So you have, let's say, a bottle of whiskey, eggnog, 2 bottles of wine, and then like chocolate goodies, like everything.
And then
we're getting hungry. Okay.
You were happy about
and then exactly, and then you also, like, for example, let's say Valentine's or whatever
Passover,
other holiday,
Passover, Easter.
Exactly, Easter. Then you get like individual, like smaller treats kind of thing. So basically, they try to keep the employee very happy.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about work-life balance. How does that work? Because I think it's becoming a trend in Israel to like care for work-life balance. But I think a lot of the times when you look at companies, their version of work-life balance is that they have like a ping pong table or a pool table, or that they have like bean bags, or that they have like, you know,
you can bring your dog.
And what does that do? It tries to keep you in the office.
Of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think we've adopted that from America. This idea of.
So okay. I mean, again, I'm speaking about my experience in the Silicon Valley. Okay, so like, I worked a mile away from Google's campus, okay, where basically you have barbers coming to you and like cutting your hair at your desk. You have washing machines at the office so you can do your laundry there. You have a playground and daycare for your children. Like, I didn't have any of this, okay? Like, let's be clear. But like, that's the kind of culture that a lot of, I would say especially big high-tech companies like want to kind of promote, and so they and there's also been this trend of like unlimited vacation, where you can take, like, there's no kind of paid time off. You can take time off as much as you want, provided you clear it with your manager. But what that ends up doing effectively is you don't take time off because you want to be like a good worker, and you're kind of worried about taking time off for your manager and whatever. And so like in the end, people who have those policies end up taking less time off. In the companies that I work for, they were both very different in terms of work-life balance. For one of them, it was like a small startup, and I was working like 80 hours a week, something insane. And in the other one, it was so different that I stayed at work until 5:30 p.m. and my manager came to talk to me because she thought I was stressed. Because she was like, "You're staying so late," and I was like, "It's 5:30." What?
That's a big range.
Yeah, they're very. It really depends on the company that you work for, I would say.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we do have a law for that, of course. So you're not allowed to work longer than 10 hours a day, and you have to have 11 hours between one day and the other. That's the law, but obviously in the company you can kind of go around it as well, because it's like some are not really tracking your hours, or if you track it then you can also like cheat on it a bit. So I think most of the companies they want to try to like really keep it in a way of like that you only have those like maximum of 10 hours you work a day. But as you know, us as Germans, we like work a lot and we are efficient in what we are doing. So we definitely also work more than like what is officially allowed to do.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, basically Venezuela is a very archaic working environment, and there is this culture of the more time I am sitting in my desk warming the chair, the better employee I am, and the better I look with my line manager and with the boss and everyone. So even if you are eating lunch at your desk, leaning back, just the fact that your presence in the desk is well seen. So basically promotes workaholic people, like just being in the office. Sitaholics, basically like.
Yeah. It actually became a trend, like in Bolivia, like it was very common for everyone to have their office, like walls around your office, and like maybe you have like some coworkers with you and stuff like that. And then like it became like a trend to have like an open office, like where everyone can see anyone and you feel monitored. Like when you're in closed doors, which I was, like you're like laughing, interacting, music, yalla, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like now it's becoming more trendy, which I think they got from the States.
Yeah,
to
well,
be
everyone knows
honest.
that, like open spaces
Thank
are it doesn't work. It's there were researchers that said that open spaces are less efficient than actually having like cubicles or something.
Yeah, depending who it's open with. No, but it's
Yeah.
not cubicle, it's store, and like it's not a cube. Cube, I don't agree with either. But in Bolivia, like the work-life balance, it depends on what job you have. Like some people take like a 2-hour break for lunch, and like they go back home, eat food, and then like take a nap, then go back, and also then just warm their seat, because by 5 p.m. like you should stay until 7, but like by 5 p.m. you aren't effective. So like people are just like warming their seats.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but that's the thing also in Venezuela. So you take a long lunch break, but then you stay until 8, 9 p.m. So then that's it. Like at, I don't know, 6, you're not actually doing anything. You're just waiting for your line manager to leave, but to see you in your desk when
and then you leave like
leaves.
1 minute after that.
Yeah, it's a culture. Like in Bolivia, you arrive, you're having tea, and everyone's having breakfast together all of a sudden, or hanging around the kitchen areas and stuff like that.
All right, I want to touch 2 more topics before we take off. One is, what are the do's and don'ts? Give me like your top 2 do's and don'ts when doing business with Americans or German or Bolivia. You know, I think in Israel, I really tried to think about it, and I asked my friends, like, what should you never do when doing business with Israelis? And the only thing I could come up with is, like, don't be over formal, which is hard because everything is over formal in Israel. But, like, I think when you try and push things through very, very elaborate like processes and bureaucracies, that's where I think Israelis kind of get irritated.
Do's and don'ts. Okay, I would say probably do be politically correct when you're doing business with Americans. It depends on the, maybe there's a like really racist CEO.
No, that's a good rule of thumb.
But
I
like
think.
in
That's
general,
really
I think being politically correct is a good trend. Maybe I don't know if this is aimed at Israelis, but like don't get angry. Like there's a lot of like Israelis can sometimes be very aggressive.
Don't take it personal.
Yes,
it's like a
so
personal.
yeah. So that's something for business with Americans. I think it's much more like handshakey and like nice to meet you.
I see.
And less like.
All right, Katty.
I guess it's kind of the same. Like in general, I think people in Germany are very polite, so you should keep that up. And also respect the different levels of whom you're talking to. Like if it's a CEO, what I said before, you never just address him or her with the first name. So just when they offer it to you, you can do it, but not like in that. It's the same with like the informal and formal way of saying you to someone. Always use the formal version till they offer you to do it.
Interesting.
I think that's
Okay, in Venezuela, do's and don'ts. So I would say a do would be find time in your business meeting for an informal, casual conversation to find like common ground with the person, like things do you have in common, and meetings will always be like at least half an hour longer than expected, just because you're casually talking like what you did in the weekend.
It's a good pointer.
Yeah. And a don't, I would say don't seem desperate for what you're looking for. Like take your time, like take it easy.
Okay.
and one
Play
good
it cool.
point, when you have meetings, 𝗤𝗨
Oh yeah, I was curious why you didn't say that. Yeah,
I can't say that for Venezuela.
Nor Bolivia.
neither can I.
Like, but yeah, like in Bolivia, you also have to like address like your superior with like señor or señora. Like you don't call them by their name only. You say señor or señora. But yeah, you also have to not be shy and like don't show that you're desperate.
Uh-huh.
That's the thing. Like just don't show that you're desperate.
All right. So last question, how about, because we have to end the topic, so how do you get fired? So is it like you get a formal letter? Is it at will? Because in Israel, usually they tell you before. If it's a big company, they have to tell you. They have to summon you, and you have to have a meeting with HR. They have to have a protocol for that meeting, and then only then they'll set the last day of your employment. It's never at will. You and usually get severance and everything.
So, thankfully, I have yet to be fired. So I'm not 100% sure, but from what I know, you can't just fire someone. There's a process that has to take place. I think you have to, like, in some places you have to put them on a PIP, a performance. I think it's a performance improvement plan. And only once with like very specific goals that they need to hit and a timeline, and only if they don't hit those goals within that timeline are you then allowed to fire them. And I think, yeah, other than that, I think that's all you need. So I mean, there's probably employers that set like really ridiculous goals or really ridiculous timelines just to be able to, cover their asses kind of.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, obviously we also have laws for that. Like every time. But it's kind of the same. Like if you really want to fire someone, you have to send them by like a written paper of like, okay, this is a warning. You get that from first. Then you have a certain time frame when you can send the next one of this warning, and then you have like it's 3 of those warnings till you actually can fire someone. And within like this time frame of those warnings, you have to make like this performance plan that they actually have the chance to improve, and only then you might be able to fire them. But it also depends on a lot of different things, and it can be actually very, very hard to fire someone in a company in Germany.
I see.
Yeah, and it's the same for Venezuela. It's really, really, really difficult to fire someone because there is a law that the name of the law translated would be labor inamobility. Like you cannot fire people. Basically, what it translates is that you cannot fire. So the only way that you're allowed to fire is you have to have a lawyer involved through the entire process, that you have your employee in observation, and you have to give sort of like what was mentioned for Germany, that you have to give like specific notes, like you did this is your first warning, second warning, third warning, and then for each warning the lawyer has to be involved, and like it's just after like a massive event that you can fire someone. So there's a lot of job security.
It's similar to Bolivia. There's also a protocol like to fire someone, and also like unless there's also another way to fire, but this is like when like the company like has like this budget, like they have to have like their year plan or like their trimester plan or something like that, and when they can see that they can't afford someone for so long, they gave a notification that within 3 months they'll have to let them go when they don't fit their business plan. But that's a different reason, and that's also allowed, but it's also kind of hard. Like they'll have to pay them also after the 3 months.
Yeah, and also is something for Venezuela, because the process to fire someone is so expensive and such a hazard for the employee. What people have been doing, like employers have been doing in Venezuela for a while, is that they give very short-term contracts, like 6 months, 3 months, 8 months. Just so that in the event that the person is not good, then it's like, oh, your contract ended, so bye. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much. We looked for a job. We got hired. We negotiated our salaries.
And we
talked
didn't
back
get
to our
fired.
boss, and then we maybe got fired. I want to end it up. With a rapid fire question segment. All right.
Oh.
I'm going to ask you all a question. I want you to shoot out the first answer off the top of your head without thinking too much. We'll start with you, Ori, again. Most missed snack from back home.
Dried Fuji apples.
All right. I don't know what that is, but we'll put a link. Katty.
I think I don't really miss anything, but it's like so much more expensive if you buy really good chocolate here.
All right.
I know places.
For me, Toronto is a sweet also from Venezuela. So yeah, I will go with chocolate as well.
Okay.
For me, it's
Tali?
𝙁𝙤𝙪𝙧. It's a fruit. It's
𝙁𝙤𝙪𝙧?
it's unique from Bolivia and it's so good.
All right. We'll have that link down.
Yeah.
All right. Referring to your hometown, what is one missed or one hidden gem that no tourist gets to see?
I don't know that Sunnyvale has that many hidden gems.
What's the one place? Let's say I have 4 hours in Sunnyvale. Where do I have to go?
Oh, go to Mountain View.
All right.
go to Castro and Mountain View.
Okay. Katty?
Oh wow, it's very hard because it's not such a huge city where I'm from.
What city is that?
It's called Hanover.
Okay. Yeah, Hanover.
So it's a nice city to walk around, but there's nothing like really, really special to see. I would say. No.
Just like one nice place.
A restaurant, maybe?
Like we have it's a lake. It's Mashte, it's called. So this is like very nice, especially like on a summer day. So like walk around, have a drink.
So in Caracas would be the Avila Mountain. It's gorgeous.
All right.
And in Santa Cruz, it would be also like the mountains. It's I forgot the name, but it's on the way to 𝙤𝙪𝙀, like another touristic destination. But this is just mountains full of like forests.
Well, we'll have a link to that. And last question: what is the last Hebrew word you've learned?
The last or the first?
The last. You can be the first. Either the first or the last.
Okay.
Whatever you choose.
So the first one for me would be Balagan.
Balagan, of course, which means a mess.
Yeah, first one I think is Yala.
Yeah.
You will like.
It's the word for everything.
For
in Israel.
everything. So you need to.
I'll go for the first one too. For me, it's slicha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
You don't hear. Yeah, it's not a word. It means excuse me. You don't hear.
No,
that.
it
Very
depends on the
useful.
tone. It was like more like sliha.
Okay.
It was.
All right.
Oh,
I
he hasn't learned.
I mean,
Shalom.
I think the word that like a word that kind of I guess struck me. The first word that's coming out is in my work. So I'm a developer, and they would constantly ask me to לדלבר.
That's a new word.
And I was
לדלבר.
like, what? What does this mean? And it's
To
to
deliver.
deliver.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? Oh, just.
All right. So our time is up. But I want to thank you all. You were wonderful. And I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I do. I had a great time. Welcome to season 2. It's a good start for season 2. If you're looking for this podcast, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and sharing your reviews, and also sharing with your friends, because that's sharing is caring. We're everywhere. We're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anything else podcast. And if you can't find the podcast for some reason, hit us up and let us know, and we'll make sure we get to your favorite podcast app or service. That's it. My name is Asaf, and if you're in Israel and you want to be a guest on the show, you can hit us up on Facebook or send an email to crossingculturespodcast@gmail.com. And thank you very much. I'll see you next time.